If you look at most women that didn't grow up with a father in the house, they don't really know how to talk. They are very aggressive and foul-mouthed. And I say this because if there's a man in the house to lead, and the man notices that in his daughter, he's going to pull his daughter to the side and he's going to teach her, coach her how to speak better, how to speak with authority in a feminine way. Hi guys, and welcome to our channel. Today we're going to be asking this question, and it goes like this. Is a father's presence important in the raising of a child from birth? And we're going to be talking about this right now. Firstly, I'm going to quickly give you the advantages for both sexes. That's both the male and the female. And then I'll give you the disadvantages to the male and the disadvantages to the female child. Firstly, I'd like to start out by saying this. One of the key advantages of having a father in the house is the financial aspect. We can't separate ourselves from the fact that raising a child is really expensive. It's actually more expensive raising a baby or a child than it is taking care of an adult. With the financial aspect, we're talking about the means to be able to give the child the best, because children have needs, and children's needs cannot be negotiated. What they want is what they want. If they want it, they want it, regardless of price, regardless of, they don't even know all that. They don't even know if this is expensive, or they don't know the economics of things. So that is why the financial aspect is so important. And having a man in the house, as opposed to just being raised by one of the parents, be it the woman, puts too much of a financial burden on one person. But when you have two people, it helps to relieve the burden, and it helps to provide more for the child. The second aspect is the balance and stability of the home. When you in a two-parent home, there's balance. The woman on one side brings love, brings empathy, brings care to the child, while the man brings leadership, discipline, and teachings to the child. Those things are very, very important in the raising of a child, in the way the child's mind is shaped up eventually, in the way the child begins to see life, in the way the child begins to analyze things. Once he has the leadership qualities, the masculine strength, that's for the male child, of the father, decision making of the father, the ability to withstand pressure from the father, and then also have the balance of the love, the care, and empathy from the mother. And from the female perspective, she has the love, obviously, the empathy from the mother, and then she also has that leadership from the father. The father will be able to guide her in different things in her life, and certain problems she might have that the mother might not be able to answer, but the father will be able to answer. And the other thing is discipline. When you have a father in the house, there is discipline, because the father sets the rules and sets the boundaries, and those boundaries will not be crossed. And that is very important in a child's life growing up. There needs to be discipline. A child that doesn't have discipline grows up to become a nuisance, a menace to society. But a child that has been disciplined, and has been disciplined in the right way, will grow up to be beneficial to that child's self and also to the society. Another one is having a role model. You know, when you have a father who goes out, works, and does things that are beneficial to the family, the child looks up to that man, sees that man as a role model, sees him more as a leader, someone who you can look, and then maybe if he's doing something, you copy it or you mimic it. If your father is somebody who wakes up, that's why you see a lot of kids, when their father goes out, maybe for the male child, you see the child go and pick up maybe the shaving machine that the father uses, and might just take it and start rubbing it on his face. Why is he doing that? Because he has seen his father do that over, and every morning he sees daddy always does this, daddy always does this. To put that into perspective, they watch their fathers, they study their fathers, they see what their father does, they see what he says, they see everything. So that is why it's always good to set good examples, and that is why having a father in the house is very, very, very important, because the children look at him as a role model, and everything he does, they take in, and they learn. So it's very important. And also, it helps them understand that in this life, there's always a leader, and the leader has responsibilities, and the leader has, even though the leader has authorities, he also has a lot of responsibilities, and they learn most of that from their father. Now let's go to the disadvantages. First, let's talk about the disadvantages of not having a father in the life of a woman, of a female child. One of them is the woman will struggle later in life when dealing with male, because they haven't had a male figure to be able to learn. Like I talked about, role model, leaders, they haven't had that role model to be able to learn from, to be able to say, okay, this is how my father behaves, this is how my father taught me how to behave, this is how my father has taught me, this is how I speak to my father. I speak to my father this way, and when I speak the wrong way, my father corrects me and says this is not the way to speak. So a woman that grows up without having a father in the house, 9 times out of 10 ends up not knowing how to deal with people, and then eventually struggle with relationships and marriage because they don't have any experience from home on how to deal with men. And also they can be very disrespectful. If you look at most women that didn't grow up with a father in the house, they don't really know how to talk. They are very aggressive and foul-mouthed. And I say this because if there's a man in the house to lead, and the man notices that in his daughter, he's going to pull his daughter to the side and he's going to teach her, coach her how to speak better, how to speak with authority in a feminine way. You don't have to yell, you don't have to shout to get your message across. You can get your message across as a woman in being very, very polite, very kind, and the message will go loud and clear. But you see, most of these foul-mouthed women we have out there, most of them, a lot of them never had fathers in the house. So they just grow up and think it's okay to just talk and be disrespectful, you know. And then also, there's also a huge possibility of them ending up as being a single mother or having children outside of wedlock. Because check this out. A young lady that grows up without a father in the house and was raised by her mother, it's just common logic. That lady is going to look at what her mother is doing and look at how her mother is living and think it's okay. She's most likely going to look at it and be like, my mother raised me and there was no problem. But she doesn't know the kind of pain that the mother feels. The pain that the mother is trying to shield from her. That, listen, the mother might be struggling, might have struggled all through to be able to pay tuition, to be able to take care of them. But the mother will shield it from them. But she doesn't see it. But she only sees her mother as a warrior, as a star. And she sees the lifestyle her mother is living without knowing the consequences. And she says, that's how I want to be. So a woman who grows up in a house by her mother without a father would tend to want to emulate what her mother has done, which is being that single mother, which is a bad thing. And also, a woman would also struggle to raise a male child. I mean, there's no leader in the house. And what's worse, if now you don't have a brother, you don't have a father in the house, maybe you only have a sister or sisters. So it's just a congregation of women. And then that woman grows up and eventually has a child. She would not know how to raise a male child. It will be very difficult to raise a male child because you don't have any experience. You've never really been around males like that. Even though people might say you might learn on the way, but there's nothing as good as having that first-hand experience when it comes to issues like this. It will help you in raising your male child. Then also, a lot of them end up psychologically scarred, bitter, angry. A lot of them end up psychologically scarred because in a case whereby the mother and the father split, maybe due to having certain differences, there's a tendency for the woman to only give her side of the story. That's the mother. And sometimes the mother might tend to over-exaggerate the role that the father played by making him look like the black sheep. And when you do that as a mother to a female child, the female child begins to have resentment towards her father, that my father abandoned us, my father left us, my father wasn't there for us. And that resentment tends to grow into anger, into bitterness and hatred towards men. And the mother might not know that what she's doing is causing this. But then you would see your child going out there into the world, and then most men cannot stand that because she's filled with bitterness, she's filled with anger, she's filled with all kinds of hatred towards men. You know, and that would end up coming out and affecting her in a future life in terms of relationship, in terms of dealing with men, and even in terms of looking for a husband. It will eventually affect her. And then I want to talk about the disadvantages to men. Men who grew up in the household without a father end up being a bit feminine and easily bullied in school. Because there's no man that will tell you, toughen up. You have a father at home, you're having problems in school with bullies, or having problems in school with people who are trying to take advantage of you. 9 times out of 10, you go to your father, and your father will give you advice that, listen, you have to stand up to these people, you have to say this, you have to say that, you have to say that, from a man's perspective. But if he doesn't have that, he tends to be easily bullied and pushed aside. So that means he has to now learn the hard way. You know, either he listens to his peers who might not be so good for him, or he just finds a way, and it can be difficult for a male child. And then also that male child could end up being too emotional or too unemotional. It's two extremes. Too emotional or too unemotional. Too emotional meaning you grew up with a woman. You were raised by a mother, and that woman has breathed all her emotions into you. And that's all you know. How to be emotional, how to cry, how to express yourself, because obviously that's what your mother would tell you. You have to express yourself, you have to say how you feel, you have to don't bottle things inside. So you ending up with a man who is an emotional wreck. Every little thing he's crying. Every little thing, every little thing, just crying all over the place. And then you end up with a girl in a man's body. And also the other extreme is unemotional. You see a lot of men who end up without having a man in the house. They are very unemotional. As in, you would dig deep before you will not even get to their emotions. They hardly cry, they hardly show emotions. They will not even, most of the women that they end up with would be wondering that where is his emotions? Where is it? You know, that comes from also not having a father in the house and having to learn how to bottle it up and how to deal with situations by yourself. And that is one of the damages it causes to a male child. And also another one is the male child might end up with the wrong crowd. Like I said earlier, you are looking for leadership. You're looking for someone to guide you. You end up with the wrong crowd. The wrong crowd that will lead you into all sorts of bad situations. You know? And that is as a result of not having a father in the house to guide you. You are looking for guidance everywhere you go. You're looking for somebody to lead you. You're looking for a mentor. You're looking for someone to help you. And you end up with a crowd of people who are not actually good for you, and they end up getting you into trouble. And this is a classic case of what happens in the world today, where a lot of women have children, and then there's no men in the house, or no man in the house. The father is not in the house, and then they end up raising these children. It has a negative effect on both the male and the female child, whichever way you look at it. And that is not to say there are no exceptions. There are always exceptions to every rule, but you do not put your money on the exceptions of a rule. You put your money on the rule itself, on how it works. Having said that, I'd like to thank you guys for watching, and also subscribe, and I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.